Hi guys, so this video is just going over the PowerPoint I went over this morning during my Zoom. It's going to talk about balancing chemical reactions, what a chemical reaction is, parts of it, and then it should kind of help set you up so that you can play the game for checkpoint 4 for today. So what is a chemical reaction? A chemical reaction is describes a chemical change. So there are parts to a chemical reaction. So here's a chemical reaction. I've got the left side and the right side. So the left side, we call them the reactants because they do the reacting. Okay. And then we've got the right side. They are the products. They are what we make. And then this arrow here is just the reaction symbols. So this means it's like to yield, to make. Okay, that's what this arrow means. So I have these two things being added together to make these things. Okay. So reactants and products. Definition of a reactant. A reactant is the chemicals that you start with. They are on the left side of the arrow. Products are what we make, and they are on the right side of the arrow. So reactants are again on the left. Products are on the right. You need to pause this so you can take notes. So description of what a subscript versus a coefficient is. So a subscript tells us how many atoms are in an element or a molecule. So our example here, we have water. So we have H2O. So what this little 2 tells me is that I have 2 hydrogens. Okay, and there's an invisible one right here. Like, it's an invisible one. Okay, there's an invisible one there next to my O, so I only have one O. Okay, so these are the subscripts. Okay, and they're only written in the chemical formulas, and they tell us how many atoms are in that chemical formula. Okay, a coefficient, like in math, is a big number that comes out front, and it tells you how many molecules you actually have. So our example is now, instead of just having H2O, we have 3 H2O. So what this means is I have 3 hydrogen molecules. So I have an H2O, an H2O, and an H2O. I have 3 H2Os. 1, 2, 3 H2Os. So that's what the big numbers out front mean. Okay, so here's a chemical reaction. Again, here are my reactants, and here are my products. Okay, if you notice, I've got 2 H2s here, so I have 2 H2s. I have one, there's an invisible one there. I have one O2. I have those. And I make 2 H2Os. So I have an H2O and an H2O. Okay, so if we want to, we could count. We have 1, 2, 3, 4. So I have 4 H's. And I could do 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 4 H's. Okay. If we wanted to, we've got 2 O's, so 2 oxygens. And then I've got 1, 2, 2 oxygens on this side. So I start and I end with the same amount of stuff. Okay? This is why we call it balancing equations. So we have the law of conservation of mass, right? The law of conservation, we've heard that before, right? When we've talked about energy, right? So just like in energy, right, chemical reactions matter. So those are that's atoms, molecules, right? Things like that. Right? Our matter, it can't be created or destroyed, so that means we have to start and end with the same amount of stuff, just like we did on that previous slide. Okay? So that means the number of atoms that you put into the reactions, so this is on the left, is equal to, right, is equal to, right, this same number coming out, which is on the right. So this is where we had like our 2H2 plus O2 goes to 2H2O, right? I have 4 H's, and I have 2 of my oxygens, and I have 2 of my oxygens, right? I have the same number of atoms on both sides of the arrow. Okay, so we would say that this is balanced because I have the same number on both sides. So this reaction, we're unbalanced. So if we wanted to, we could count, right? I have 1C, 1C. Those are the black ones. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 hydrogens. I've only got 1, 2 on this side. And I've got 1 oxygen and 2 oxygens. I've got 1 oxygen, 2 oxygen, 3 oxygens. Okay, so notice how we do not have the same numbers on both sides, right? So now I'm going to have to add coefficients to the front, right? Big numbers to the front in order to make sure that I have the same number on both sides. Okay, if you need to, like, draw out molecules like this so that you can balance your stuff out and count things, go for it. Okay, just remember that these little numbers right here tell me how many of the H's are attached to the C. Okay, and this tells you how many O's you have attached to each other. That's how many O's are attached to the C. How many H's are attached to the O. Okay, if we were to balance this, right, notice how we've put big numbers out front here. So now, if I count these, right, I have 1C, and I have 1C, I have 1 O, 2 O's, 3 O's, 4 O's, I have 1 O, 2 O's, 3 O's, 4 O's, and then I have 1, 2, 3, 4 H's, 1, 2, 3, 4 H's, okay? And in order to do that, right, I had to make sure I had 2 of the O2, so I have 1, 2, so that's 1 O2, 2, that's another O2. I have 1 O2, 2 O2s, and I had to have 2 waters, right? I have 1 water here, 1 water here. Okay, so now I have the same number of atoms on both sides. Okay, so rules to balancing are as follows. So you got to make sure that matter, we don't make things disappear, we don't make things reappear. That's what this first rule is about. No making it disappear or reappear. We're not going to change the little numbers. You cannot add them, remove them, or change them at all. Okay? You can add big numbers. That's a good thing. And the coefficients will go like in the very front. So, like for H2O, you cannot change that to being like HO to make it balanced. Like, you can't do that, right? You can't change that. This has to stay. For this one, you can, like, you can have H2O, or you can change it to like 2H2O, right? That's okay. If you need more O's, right, you can't do this where you have H2O. Like, can't do this, right? Can't do that. Okay, so try balancing big formulas first. The little elements will usually balance out. Polyatomics, so are groups of elements that have a single charge. And if you have the same one on both sides, you can view it as like one whole element. And some of them, like balancing equations, are hard. Sometimes you kind of have to be a little bit creative, and you really kind of have to think about how to solve it. Okay, if you need to save this, or if you need to pause now so that you can write this stuff down, pause now and we'll continue on. Okay, so we're going to balance this equation here. So if you look at this equation, I have two n's, right? I have n's and h's. I have two n's on the left side here. I've got 2, okay, and I have two h's. So I have two n's, two h's on the left. On the right, I only have 1 here, and I have 3 h's, so I have 1 and 3. Notice this isn't balanced, right? This right now is not balanced. Sad face. Okay, but we're going to fix it. So to fix it, let's see if we can fix our n's first. Okay, so I need to add something to the front of this to multiply this n, which there's 1 n. I need to multiply it by something to get 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a 2 here. Notice that this 2, right, I put the 2 at the front. I did not do n, like I didn't do n, yeah. It didn't go in the middle, and I didn't put a little 2 here, right? I didn't do like N2H3, right? Can't do that. Okay, so I put a big number up in the front, and what ends up happening is now I have 2 n's, so now I have 2 n's on both sides. But now I have, right, 2 NH3, so I have an NH3 and an NH3. So now I have my 2 n's, 1, 2. But now I have 3 h's on this one and 3 h's on this one, so that's a total of 6 h's. Okay, so now I only have 2 h's here, so I need to change this to make it so that it has 6 h's. So I'm going to add the big 3 up front. Okay, so notice how, you know, I didn't do this, right? Can't do that. So, so now I have an H2, an H2, and an H2. So I have 2, 4, 6. I have 6 H's there. Notice how we've got 2, 2, check, 6, 6, check. We are now happy and balanced. Okay. This is it for how to balance equations for checkpoint 4. Okay. Checkpoint 4, it's a balancing equations game. You're going to search for the PhET balancing equations. Okay. It's going to be that first link. You're going to click play so you can play through the game. Read checkpoint 4 for the instructions. Okay, please read it. It is a game that will literally give you the answers. All you have to do is just copy the answers over, okay? Checkpoint 4 and 5 are due on by the end of this week. So that's it for now.